And it's preparing. And you're good.
Okay, terrific. Hang on a minute. I would like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, October 5th. It is 1:08 p.m. We had a couple of technical difficulties there at the outset. Sorry, folks. And so we're a little late getting started, but we are live on a digital platform. Present here at the meeting, we have Fire Chief Mark Killian, Police Chief Justin Snyder, and Assistant Chief Jason Bolt, myself, Liz Mealy from City Council, as well as Bonnie Katz, and I'm guessing that Randy Allison's back there in the cheap seat somewhere, although I'm not sure. And then I see our city clerk, Joe Pavlak from Finance, John Sander, the city engineer, and Derek Slaughter, the mayor. If I've missed anybody, I apologize. This whole screen thing can be a little confusing to me sometimes. Okay, and we do have Janice Frank, you're out there. I don't know if I got an updated agenda reflective of the police item. Could you resend it to me? I've got the old one and we'll get started with that. But
okay.
Okay, so I think we'll just start off and take it in order here. I've got, I believe, 7 items on the Finance Committee agenda, but item number 1 should be an ordinance transfer, number 3 in first reading. Mayor Slaughter?
Yeah, what you have in front of you is ordinance number 3, transfer ordinance for CDBG for our engineer. So this is the salary, he's at $73,000. This ordinance and the subsequent one, 3,500 CDBG and liquid fuels. Our engineer, the average salary for a city engineer is about $92,000. As I said, he's at 73. This would bring him up to 80. 3,500 apiece. We checked with our CDBG project delivery, and that qualifies. And we also checked with liquid fuels, and that qualifies, which neither one of those, it's no hit to the general fund, which is why we're bringing it now. Get some more closely aligned to a municipal engineer without any additional general fund money for that. He does do, obviously, for CDBG project delivery with his streets, and same with liquid fuels, which are eligible under those 2 line items for the work that our engineer does. This was also reviewed by Austin White in addition to our HUD consultant and our liquid fuels representative as well.
Okay, so help me to understand. We approved a salary in this year's budget, the 2021 budget, of $73,000 for Mr. Sander.
Correct.
But we're looking to give him a raise to $80,000?
Correct, just to bring him more in line. As we did some research and actually Skip Memmi is the one that brought it to my attention initially to say, he does CDBG work, this can be project delivery, and he does liquid fuels. So the more we started researching a little bit, this is eligible, yeah. And it would bring him more closely aligned to, just to a municipal engineer. We're very fortunate. I mean, obviously John's doing great work and all that, and we're fortunate to get him where we did, but we want to, if it's eligible and we can utilize it, that's why I brought it to you.
Okay, I guess the only reason that I'm concerned about this is that it wasn't an agreed upon salary amount in the general fund budget in 2021. We'll need to budget it in 2022. The anticipation is that we'll continue pulling the extra funds from CDBG and liquid fuels surplus for 2022. Is that the proposal?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're both eligible and he does those works. Yes.
Okay, got it. But that surplus element may or may not continue. I mean, it's a small amount of money, and I know we have a substantial amount of surplus at this point, but we get a CDBG allocation every year. The liquid fuel surplus is a little different because it's a finite amount of money that we may or may not add to year over year as we try to max out our usage of liquid fuels. So at some point, that at least is likely to redound to the general fund budget, as well as, all the pension costs associated with the $7,000 pay increase. So have we contemplated the overall, I guess all I'm asking is, whatever we think is fair is fine. If there's an industry standard salary and we're not meeting it, then I can understand the necessity for a raise. I just am trying to understand the longer term financial implications of the decision. Joe Pavlak, what is the financial impact to the general fund, in terms of pension or anything like that? Is there any?
There will be with an increased salary, but that exact number I can't tell you.
Got it. Okay. I'm just trying to wrap my head around all the ramifications. That's all. I'm not disputing whether or not John's worth the increased salary, and I guess, and then the other, John's an at-will employee, correct, Eric? He's not a member of any union
That's
within the
correct.
city, obviously.
Correct.
So raises for at-will employees are to a certain extent at will, but we obviously aren't afraid that this will generate ill will elsewhere, correct?
No, that's correct.
Okay. Because since all of this is a matter of public record, it's a little different from the way that businesses operate sometimes.
Exactly. Right.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about it in a public meeting. Okay. Bonnie, did you have any questions about these items?
Yes. First of all, I want to state that we all know what a great job John does. I've always called him the Energizer Bunny. He's all over God's creation, trying to solve and problems and also address everything. My question is, why are we discussing and going after a raise when we're almost in time for budget and salaries coming up in the next month, really? And why aren't we waiting till budget season? What created this issue about a salary raise now? And why are people going into this discussion now? I find that interesting.
Yeah, that's a good question. And actually, we've been discussing this for a little while. Like I said, Skip brought it to my attention. And given that it's no hit to the general fund, we figured we could bring it now. Or I should say minimal, obviously, with the pensions and stuff. Minimal hit, but no, we're not moving any money, CDBG and liquid fuels. So figured I could bring it now prior to the budget, and it'd be one less thing that we need to address during the budget.
But this is addressing the 2021 budget year, not the 2022 budget year, correct? So this is effectively a retroactive raise. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Or is this, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it could go into effect, if it's approved after the second reading.
Right. Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is this isn't, what Bonnie's asking is why not look at this for 2022? What, right, Bonnie? Was that the gist of your?
Exactly, because
Right. And
if you give a raise now, Mayor, you're going to be addressing a salary in the budget in a month, which will increase his salary again.
No. His is not going to get increased again. This would be it right here. So, in a month from now, we would not look at doing it again.
Well, let me ask you this
now.
question. There are other employees that are at-will employees that I don't think their salaries have been addressed. And it's, what's fair for one person should be fair for everybody. I mean, if you look at some of the other salaries, are they in line with other departments throughout? I guess you looked at other departments throughout the state at this point, from what you're saying, Skip Mimi said.
Right. I looked at engineer. That's correct. And then the other ones, the reason I brought this now, like I said, was due to CDBG and liquid fuels. The other ones we can definitely address at the budget, because most likely, obviously, the other at-wills probably will not come from project delivery, CDBG, or liquid fuels. But you're right. I mean, I do want to look at everyone, but brought the engineer now because he could be addressed now with CDBG and liquid fuels.
As much as I love what John does, I feel very uncomfortable with this.
I kind of agree, Bonnie, and I apologize, Derek. I had no idea that was the gist of these two Transfer ordinances, which is my fault because I should have asked questions, but I just figured it was something mundane. And but yeah, it seems maybe in the midst of a pandemic a little just a little inappropriate to do a retroactive raise when we're so close to the next budget year, and we could make that a reality in the 2022 budget year, and perhaps make a point of looking over the salaries of all the of other at-will employees, because I think that, to Bonnie's point, the whole idea is we do want to compensate the individuals in our employ fairly for the work that they do. There's no doubt about that. We also operate under financial constraints as a city, similar to other third-class cities in the Commonwealth. And so if we're looking at normalizing salaries within the city, we really do need to look at all of them simultaneously to try and be fair to all of the employees who work for us. Not all of them, not the union salaries, obviously, but all the at-will salaries, to try and make certain that we are being kind of fair across the board for what would be expected. And that if we can afford to put the X amount of money into the kitty for a salary increase, then that we distribute it, fairly, I suppose, across those positions. Is that what I hear you saying, Bonnie?
That's what I'm saying. I think, Liz, you and I work and we have our own businesses, and we also realize what happens if one person gets a raise and other people don't, when the other people are working as hard as that person. It creates a problem. It really does. And for me, I think John can wait one more month when the budget comes about, and then go after that. Then to see where it goes. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling that way too.
Just to be clear, one point, it's not retroactive. I just want to make that point. It won't be retroactive, just be moving forward. But okay, that's all the point I wanted to make.
Okay, so this is for, because we're revising the 2020 Community Development Block Grant Fund budget, for instance. But the idea is that we're making these transfers to take care of the 2022 budget year.
Right. So whenever this would, if pending approval, it would take effect then. So it would not be, we won't go back to January 1 of 2021 and pay him for this year. It wouldn't be retroactive. It would just be forward.
Well, I guess to our point, so he's receiving a raise to a total amount annually of $80,000, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if, so we've got 2 readings on an ordinance, right? And then 20 days to it going live. So that would get us to probably maybe the beginning of December or something like that, in terms of when it would take effect, which theoretically means that John would, this is really confusing, Derek, and I apologize, but that he would be receiving only 1 month's salary at $80,000 this year, right? So the transfer in this budget year would be $300 in each of these lines. And then we would need to transfer for the 2022 budget year, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Like the 3,500 will bring him up in 2022 to 80,000 a year.
Yep.
Right. But to just raise his compensation to 80,000 for the remainder of 2021 as well, which I would feel maybe a little bit more comfortable with, means that the transfer amount should maybe be some other number, like $4,000 from each of these lines, right? And then that, I don't even know, we'd have to double check with Joe whether we can do that, transfer funds in 2021, most of which are then going to apply to 2022, or whether we need to do it as 2 separate ordinances. Pavlak, you got anything?
This transfer is related to the 2021 budgets, not the 2022. So if there's something for 2022, it would need to be addressed in 2020.
Got it. So if we were making this a raise that was taking effect in that 2 weeks from now and then 20 days from that time frame, so mid-November to the beginning of December, then we would need to transfer just the amount of funds required to cover that raise for that time.
If the money was transferred to the account and the money was not all spent, then that would just fall to the bottom line. Community development's a little bit different because they have multi-year budgets. But as the mayor, I think that the mayor indicated that this wasn't retroactive, so there would only be the short period that this could go into effect. So it'd be smaller than the 7,000 for 2021.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, you'd be looking at more like $800 or something, right? 6 to 800.
and then then whatever the number was for 2022 should be built in, avoiding the transfer.
Right. And anyway, maybe the gist of it is that it seems like it would be more appropriate for us to just look at this starting clean at the beginning of 2022 and take the interim time to also look over other salaries within the city and see if we need to try and find funds to bring those into line as well. But
I agree with you.
it seems cleaner than rather than doing 2 ordinances and all the advertisements and everything like that go with them to transfer $800. But
That's my opinion. I would also like to see, pass this on with no recommendation and also see what the rest of council feels.
Yeah, I think we can do that, or perhaps it would merit simply inquiring with some other council members or something between now and Thursday, Derek. But
That's fine.
yeah, just trying to wrap my head around the optics of it, I guess. Okay, and I'll and yeah, what was I gonna say? Yeah, like both of us said, we know John works his butt off and he's been doing a really good job. And John, this is not even remotely about performance or anything like that. It's just trying to understand both the optics of it and the logistics of it here, and especially how it looks both to the public but also to other members of city government. Okay, all right, Bonnie. Then we're sending this with no recommendation currently.
Right. I make a motion. We pass this on to full body of council with no recommendation.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 2 on our agenda. Hey, we're moving faster than
Basically
usual.
the same thing, so.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, okay.
Is ordinance transfer ordinance number 4 in first reading. Derek, we don't need to talk about it any further. Bonnie, you want to make a recommendation?
Right.
I make a motion that we pass this on to the full body of council with no recommendation.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right then. Hang on just one sec. Okay. Picking up the new finance agenda so that I'm not winging off of an old one now. Okay. And moving on to item number 3. Mr. Sander, we're sorry to.
Is he going to talk to us?
Chief.
Is he going to talk to us now?
Yeah, actually, though, but excuse me. Now that I've picked up the new finance agenda, I realized that Chief Snyder actually was item number 1 on the new agenda. And Chief, you probably could just do this public reading and get the heck out of here. So let's go back to the new item number 1 on our agenda, a public reading of bid related to firearms. Chief Snyder?
Yes, thank you, Councilwoman Mealy. I did receive 3 bids for firearms and just wanted to do a public reading here. So the first bid we received was from Atlantic Tactical Incorporated, and what their bottom line bid was for $20,617.50. The next bid we got was from Whitmer Public Safety Group Incorporated. The bottom line bid from them was $20,130. Then I did receive one in the mail that I'm going to open here now. And just, I'm not sure if I said it, these are for firearms and accessories for the Williamsport Bureau of Police.
Yeah, that was my understanding, but thanks for pointing it out, Chief.
Yes, just one. And then we got one. Go ahead, man.
No, please.
Okay, then we got one third one that was sent by mail from Pittsburgh Public Safety Supply Incorporated, and their bottom line, all right, they're $12,940. So with that being said, these 3 bids, what we're going to do is we're going to give all the paperwork to our solicitors for review to make sure all the paperwork is in compliance and proper, and then make a decision from there, and then we would bring it to council.
Okay. Fantastic. All right. Thank you very much to you, Snyder.
Okay. If there's no questions,
We don't need to have any discussion on this, I don't believe, correct? Since we
I don't
don't
think
know
so.
whether all the bids are responsive, et cetera, it seems a little too early to really discuss the items further. So, okay. All right. Thanks very much. And we'll see you here in a couple of weeks.
all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 4, resolution awarding professional engineering services for the 4th Street reconstruction project to Larson Design Group. Mr. Sander.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everybody. So this resolution is to award the design services to Larson Design Group for the 4th Street block between Basin and Penn. I call it kind of like the DeSalvo's block, the block that DeSalvo's is on. For this project, let's take a step back for a second. We got a state grant in the amount of, before I started here, we got a state grant in the amount of 600, I'm gonna talk real slow till I get to the page. $644,514 from a CFA multimodal grant. With that is a $276,000, $220 local match. The match is going to be paid by Lycoming County. However, in order to initiate the project, we need to pay up front and get reimbursed from the county. So that's the way the process has to work. So this grant was gone after a couple of years ago with city individuals and Delta, and it was awarded to us. This is the block basically that DeSalvo sits on from Penn to Basin. This kind of finishes out, or not finishes out, but starts to button up the whole old city area down there, right in front of the music building and DeSalvo's itself. So with that, we got 6 proposals from 6 design firms for the design, and I'll also read the amounts for design for public record. Just letting you know, the selection is based on dollar amount of their services and qualifications. So the 6 firms were Barry Islet for $115,500, Larson for $69,315, Livick for $65,575, Peters for $68,300, RKW for $69,725, and Stahl Schaefer for $109,857. Myself and 2 other individuals in the administration ultimately agreed that this particular case, we'd like to award to Larson. Larson worked with Delta to get the grant. They also made the local connections with DeSalvo's and actually interviewed DeSalvo's and connections with Lycoming College. So having the local connection with Larson for this particular project, I think is the right way to go. That's why I'm going with Larson. I'm one person that would like to go, have Larson design this project. It's just, there's no PennDOT involvement. It's a city street. To fund it, we are using liquid fuel allocation. I asked PennDOT if we could do that, and the gentleman from PennDOT District 3 said we could. So what you have in front of you should be the resolution, the funding okay from PennDOT, and then the grant that we received, the state grant that we received. Any questions?
Yeah, I have some, but Bonnie, do you have any?
I just found it interesting that there were so many people that put bids in for this, and a majority of them were all in the same ballpark. I can understand why you're saying with Larson, because they've worked on this project for how much of it, John, would you say they worked on this project?
I've been at the city for 1 year and 3/4 now, so the entire time I've been here, put it that way. So yeah, at least
Larson, how much did Larson participate in this project before?
Well, they designed portions of the 3rd Street project and all of the Basin Street expansion.
Okay.
So,
like you said, they've been involved, and I just wanted to clarify this for the public.
sure.
And the cost factor that we're going with is $69,315. And will this close up and end this whole project at this point?
No, I mean, no, it won't. So
We still have Willow Street, correct?
we have.
Oh, I forgot about Willow Street.
We have Willow Street. I have kickoff meeting tomorrow for. Also, we have the next block west that we've gone after a grant for with Delta as well. We haven't heard back on that one yet. So when that one goes from Basin to Mulberry, that would effectively close out the area if we get that grant.
Okay. I don't have any more questions, Liz.
Okay, thanks, Bunny. The only questions I had, John, one of the documents that you sent along was the original proposal for the look of the block.
Correct.
And understanding that, of course, we're authorizing the design at this point. Back when we originally had looked at that proposal, there was, and this was several years ago, well before your time. I know Jonathan Williamson was still council president. Like it was a long time ago. I wouldn't expect you to know about this, but there was general agreement on that council, and I would assume that there would also be general agreement on this council that certain elements of that design were inappropriate.
Go ahead.
Specifically those designs, I think there were elements that provided for like closing the street down to permit like catered events in front of DeSalvo's.
Yeah, no, we're not doing that.
Okay.
We're not. So we're not going to impede. We're not going to impede traffic flow for businesses to prosper, so to speak, at that level. I'll put it this way. I'll put it that way. I would not encourage that. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Now,
well, I guess to my.
The graphic that you see on the grant application was simply a graphic for the, for the project
for
itself.
the grant application.
Yeah.
No, I understand. I just wanted to make it clear, as long as we were moving forward now with Larson to do the final design for the project, that I know that I wouldn't support, and I'm guessing the rest of council wouldn't support. We have done, and we know that it's sort of part and parcel of a number of city projects, streetscape improvements in front of a number of different city businesses in the downtown over the last decade. As we've
keep in mind. I'm sorry. Keep in mind, I want to point one thing out. It's not just the Salvos, it's also the music building, which is literally getting built right now. So there's kind of like coming in, the Salvos are the main players on that block, so to speak, just letting you know.
Oh yeah, no. I understand. But what I'm saying is like we've provided, we obviously take care of the streets downtown, and we've provided streetscape improvements at with grant funds received by the city or at the city's expense in front of a number of businesses downtown. But I would be reluctant to provide other elements above and beyond standard streetscape to any business within the general downtown area, because it would just seem to me like that would give a lot of room for other businesses to get disgruntled about not having received those perks too. Do you know what I'm saying?
I agree.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to impede traffic flow just for, correct.
Yeah, and it's one thing, I mean, and I would make the same argument with like Coleman College's building. We do the streetscape, you know what I mean? But if we do something else for like Coleman College that's more amplified, Penn College then has, a leg to stand on to say, hey, I don't understand. So I think that we need to be careful and as fair as we can be. We've provided streetscape to downtown businesses, and we haven't necessarily been able to do it elsewhere in the city because we aren't doing projects there. So there's a slight inequity there anyway, but I don't want to amplify it by then also providing extra services to either an institution or a business within the CBD above and beyond the streetscape services. So, but I'll make the point on Thursday so that it's clear to Larson's representative as well, that we don't want to expose ourselves. Okay. You don't think they'll be on, you said?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, it might, if it would be possible for someone to attend, that might not be a bad idea. Just in case anyone has questions about the scope of the design, the anticipated, I guess the only other question that I had for you, which might be better answered by Larson, is we received, what did you say, $600,000 for this?
600, and I had to close the PDF, but I'll open it back up.
644, 514.
Got it. And the design funds are coming out of liquid fuels, so that won't take any funding from that. But the other question is, can we complete this project for that amount of money?
Actually, the design was, this project grant award was all inclusive of construction costs and design costs, just letting you know.
Oh, okay. So we are taking the money for this in the long term out of the grant.
Correct.
Okay, so that leaves us with $570,000 to complete the work in that block.
That actually, it's in a big long spreadsheet format. Approximately $730,000 for construction, and then there's contingencies, design and construction contingency for 5% of 36 grand, design and engineering at 73 grand, construction manager fee at 50 grand, other soft costs for 26, and then total of 920, and that's broken
Okay.
down into the state and
Was there a state and
local match component? Yes.
okay, so we're then assuming nearly $300,000 in local match for the total project. I thought I remembered it being a $900,000 total project,
Yes.
but the grant was only 600 or something.
Correct.
Does the grant has a match requirement then?
Yes, paid by the Cumming County, but we have to pay it up front and then get reimbursed. So correct. That's correct.
Okay, so can you clarify for me 100% by Thursday that match exists?
I have already done that.
Okay, good. So that $300,000 is out there, correct?
I've already confirmed that with like Cumming County. Yes.
Okay. I thought that I had heard rumors that we might have utilized more than the matches that we had available in somewhere in East 3rd Street. So I just wanted to be certain that there was indeed still match money. But as long as we're certain that there is, then great. Awesome. So regardless, then the secondary question for Larson is, if we have $900,000 to spend, costs being what they are currently, we do anticipate that being a sufficient amount of money to get the job done. I think what we need to clarify is that this project cannot go over budget.
Given the fact that it's only once, and now granted, it is one long city block, I highly doubt that we're going to be going over close to $1 million on one city block.
I would agree. I hope we don't. At the time when we reviewed this project, whatever, 3 or 4 years ago in front of council, I was like, are you kidding me? $1 million for a city block?
Yeah.
And, I would hope that we can't spend that much money. But my point is, I think we need to be clear with Larson that top number is an absolutely firm budget. The city does not have any money whatsoever to kick in for cost overages, given that we know that the cost of materials has gone up like 30% in the last year.
I'll ask Chris
Okay.
Kaiser if he's available Thursday night. Yep.
Okay. All right. I think that's all the concerns I have about this item. Bonnie, did that jog anything else loose for
Nope,
you?
I don't think so.
Okay,
No.
then I would take a motion.
I
Oh,
make
does
a
anybody
motion-
else does anybody else out there have a comment to make on this item? All right, hearing nothing. Bonnie?
I make a motion, we pass this on to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. All right. Moving on to what I believe is now item number 5 on the agenda. Okay. Mr. Sander, resolution awarding professional design services for the Brandon Park Band Shell to Gannett Fleming.
Sure. So a couple of years ago, Gannett Fleming, I think it was 2017, I had a report in my other office. Gannett Fleming did an in-depth inspection of the band shell and about a 30-page report of an inspection report on the band shell itself. In addition to that, they were actively performing design work. They stopped, I think Bill Nichols was their contact, and they no longer had that contact. So basically, we are restarting the design services. I'm asking to restart the design services for Gannett Fleming. They're approximately a third to halfway done with the design. So what I have in front of you is a resolution to rehire them for design in the amount of $29,900. With the band shell, after it's designed, bid, and got to a contractor for construction, we have a couple funding streams here that are dedicated. We have the FCFP Foundations currently has $150,000 for construction. City CDBG funds have $110,000 for construction, and Lake Cumming County has also given us $20,000 for construction. So it's at $270,000. $280,000 for construction. So this is to get us to the construction stage. So in regards to the band shell itself, if you read the proposal from Gannett, they're looking at doing a couple things. Right now, the stage floor has some cracking that will be repaired. Also, the front wall of the stage will be rebuilt. It has some holes in it, some of the brickwork. In addition to that, there are random sections of brick on the surface of the building, they're in poor condition, that'll be replaced or repointed. The roof is in very poor shape and will be completely replaced, as will the roof gable. We're looking to also increase ADA accessibility up to the band shell and also inside the band shell. A lift or a ramp will likely be installed either on the side or towards the back. In addition to that, when I was at the band shell this spring with Gannett, they were concerned about the humidity inside, so they might look at, if we have, depending on cost, once they start design, possible HVAC and elements to control the structure, the humidity inside the structure. And also the electric inside the building is very old, also upgrade the electric to current code standards. See what else I got. It's high relevance here.
Hey, John, can I ask a
Sure,
quick
sure.
question about,
Sure.
are we, and maybe this is a better question for Joe Girardi, if we're doing work on the band shell, are we required to upgrade the electric? Or is it something where we kind of get grandfathered in unless we really start doing a major overhaul?
It'd be a question for Joe Girardi, actually.
Okay, all right. Well, he'll probably be there Thursday. I'm just thinking about it. I guess I'm thinking it seems as though we're unlikely to be able to bring the money to the table to do HVAC in the band shell. Although perhaps we could get a couple of dehumidifiers or something. but just trying to see what our obligations are when we're looking at doing this work versus sort of pie in the sky things if we happen to find more revenue. Okay, sorry, John, I interrupted you.
Oh, that's fine. No, that's okay. And this has been sitting around for a couple of years, and I guess a lot of folks were asking to restart the band shell, so that's where we're at. We're trying to restart the band shell.
Mm-hmm.
To pay for this, to fund it, I spoke to Adam Winder, and we had in the information you have to you, Liz, and everyone else too, as well, council. There are 2 line items on the streets and parks budget that are contract services in the amount of $40,000 and other park materials for a line item for $15,000. Those are unused or very, very slightly used, and they will cover the design cost. This will require a line item transfer. So
I apologize, John. Where did you say we were transferring these funds from again?
Sure. Streets and parks, you can jot it down if you want. 2270-79-100 contract services. There's approximately $40,000 in that budget, in that line item. And also Parks Department, 2240-621-50 other park material. There's $15,000 in that.
And that's for mulch and things like that. Have we not needed to replace mulch this year?
Don't know. It was a very brief discussion. Adam had availability in those line items. So,
okay, John, I'm not trying to be a jerk and tell you that you can't have the money again, but the contract services in streets and parks is specifically for what's effectively Adam's salary.
Gotcha.
Correct, Joe?
That's in 2201 administration.
Okay. So these contract services are funds that we actually don't have a planned use for in 2021?
I don't recall what Adam had proposed those for. So if Adam's indicating that he's not doing what he initially intended, then I have to go with that.
Okay. Got it. Will Adam be there on Thursday so that we can confirm that, John?
I will ask him to.
Okay. Yeah, if you could, I'd appreciate it. I'm just trying to make sure, because I know that I am concerned, all of us on council are concerned about all of the elements of city government that RVT is currently helping with, and we know that there will eventually be a payback for those services. And the main one is Adam Winder's time, because he is still serving as the director of streets and parks while he's also serving as the director of RVT, and the city is effectively kind of compensating him backwards for that time. So that was my concern with the contract services line, but I remain concerned because since we don't have a definitive idea, unless I've missed something, Joe, some development in the last couple of weeks, I don't think we have a definitive idea what our total financial obligation is for Adam Winder's time for this year. So I'm reluctant to pull a bunch of money out of the streets and parks budget when we don't know what that. We've already taken money from the salary line for the Streets and Parks Director because we don't have one. So it's not there. Anyway, Joe Pavlak, have we gotten a better idea of what our financial obligations likely to be?
I've not seen anything.
Okay. Derek Slaughter, are you still on here?
Let me just
I'm
read
still
it.
here.
Just read it. Let me
Okay.
just reiterate real quick. Myself and Adam spoke. And
Oh,
asked
I know.
Yeah.
I understand that. I'm not questioning that element of it. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm concerned about keeping flexible funds in the Streets and Parks budget as much as possible because I don't know what our total obligation will be to RVT out of the Streets and Parks budget. And I'm sure that Adam Winder is keeping that in mind as well. But since we haven't been received all that many invoices from RVT, it is hard for any of us to know what that financial obligation is. So I think what I was just about to ask Derek is, can we try ASAP to get some sort of idea what our projected total cost is over the course of the year so that we can begin to deal with that within our various department budgets, so that we're not at budget time, not only trying to figure out how to cover our projected costs for 2022, but also trying to figure out how to cover our already incurred costs for 2021, because that's going to make it real unpleasant.
Yep. I can
Okay.
get that. Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, if there's any way to have at least some version of that information online for Thursday, that would be great. But if there's not, then it would certainly be good to have it within the next 2 weeks. In fact, Janice, if you're on here, could you put a review of the city's expenses through RVT on the finance budget 2 weeks from now? As a standing report there at the end. Thanks, Janice. Okay. All right. Then yeah, I feel comfortable, if Winder thinks these funds are not going to be utilized, and if he can come on Thursday and confirm that, then I think, Bonnie, do you have any other?
Well, that was one of my questions with the contract services. We've already taken money from contract services for the scoreboard. And then we're going to take 40,000 again. How much is going to be left? And it is kind of, we have to know where we stand with that. John, I do have a question with, when will we get a design on what they're going to do with the accessibility with the band shell? Would there be any designs that we can see?
Yeah, I'd like to. Sure. They're going to do a more in-depth structural report. They are saying approximately 4 weeks or a month till when they're get awarded the project. If and when they're awarded the project. After a month or so, approximately, another structural evaluation report. And then 2 months for the design, the plan set, essentially, specifications, and the construction estimate for the project. So roughly 2 months, they could have some plans to you and what Gannett plans to ultimately do.
The reason I'm only asking because I worked a lot inside the band shell and outside, and the accessibility it's a problematic for everybody. It really is.
Yep.
And I'm looking at the cost factor of this and everything that they want to get accomplished, and it kind of scares me with everything they want to do, and knowing what needs to be done in that band shell. I don't want it to exceed what we have.
Sure.
And I think Liz is right with what we're going to do with the electricity, with with that. I mean, we just have to be so very careful. I mean, we're talking a lot of work here that they're proposing.
So what
accessibility alone is going to, be quite a bit. Making the bathroom accessible, that's, halfway, not halfway there. It's all, there a little bit. But I mean, and I don't know how the plumbing is in that area to maintain that. So there's a lot of work to be done. And John, what do you feel the figures are with this?
That's why we're paying Gannett Fleming $30,000 to determine what the needs are, evaluate the structure, show us what they can do with the $280,000 in construction money we have. That's why we're paying them $30,000.
We're going to have to take checkpoints here to see what is absolutely necessary to to maintain our asset here. The band shell is a fantastic asset. You know, we have to do everything we can to make sure that it is going to be fine, but we also have to remember what the budget is with this, where we're going to stand with this.
Well, and I think to Bonnie's point on this, John, that what we don't want to do is spend $30,000 on design only to have Gannett Fleming effectively tell us that we can't afford to do anything to the band shell.
Well,
That's it exactly, Liz.
I'm
Right.
100% sure. I'm 100% sure we can spend $280,000. Now, what that gets us, right off the top of my head, I don't know until they start to investigate and give some.
Yeah. Well, I guess the issue is that we cannot. They obviously need to give us ranked priorities in terms of what needs to be done at the band shell.
Sure.
And I think if there's any way that they can evaluate straight out of the gate whether or not $280,000 is enough to do the work that we would need to do to make it operational.
Yeah.
And then we could avoid spending the remainder of the $30,000 if in fact we don't have enough money to do what we need to do to it right now. That would probably be ideal. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay. While I am a huge advocate for independent studies within the city and things like that, and while I understand the need for a design firm, what I don't like to see is for us to spend money on studies or design to discover that we can't afford to do whatever project it is that then winds up being recommended. Especially when we're spending general fund money to do the design, and then we know we have this small pot. If they're going to come back and tell us that we need to spend a minimum of $500,000, and then by the time we go out and locate the other $200,000, all of the prices have gone up, and we can't afford. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Liz, if you don't mind. So,
sure.
Do you, very simple, black and white, yes or no? Do you want the band shell fixed?
Absolutely, I think all of us do.
So, in order to do that, we have to hire the design firm. They can spend 2 to 3 months, however long it takes, to design it, and then we'll figure out then they'll prioritize our needs, and then we'll get a report. That's not just a report, but actual plans, construction plans. This is a process that happens over several months. That's how it goes. I mean, the more obstacles I have, the more things I can't do. You understand?
Yeah, no, I understand that. What I'm asking you to do is ask them to prioritize, to understand, in both this case and the case with Larson that we discussed earlier, to understand that the city has a finite amount of funding and that we need to do the project for that amount of funding.
John, what Liz is saying, what Liz is saying is she wants priorities. When they come up with what they diagnosed the whole band shell, we need the priorities, and then we can go from there.
Okay.
And we have to be able to get the sucker operational for $280,000.
All right.
That's what I'm saying. So we need to clarify for them that if they do a full evaluation, and there are lots of other great projects that we need to do in the band shell at some point, fantastic. Yeah. But we need to be able to bring the band shell up to standards with 280, and then we will look for other money in the future. Unless the administration. Unless the administration has a proposal to find other funding, unless it's ARPA viable, et cetera. You know what I mean? But that's another discussion we need to have then. But I think, what we have struggled with, and John, none of this redounds to you. This is all stuff that I've dealt with in before you were on council. What we have struggled with is we have a pot of money for a project, and somehow or another, the project inevitably costs 30% more than that. And we are not in a position to do that any longer. We never were. So, I guess I just think we need to be clear with the contractors we're hiring to do design that this is the amount of money they're going to be working with, and that they shouldn't anticipate us finding another $2,000 just because they can put together something that requires that much funding. That's really the point that I'm making. I'm not telling you I don't want to move forward with the design study. I'm just telling you that we need to make sure that the priority is fitting within the funding that we have.
Ideally, we shoot for 10 to 20% under.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Because construction almost always goes 10%, 20% over budget, period. That's how it goes. That's how construction goes. So that's what I'm shooting for.
Okay, good. Well,
We
that'd be
thank you, John.
fantastic. We'd
That's
like to see
that's a
that
good
even
point.
better.
All righty.
If we're finished, I'll make a motion, Liz.
Yep, please, Bonnie, sorry.
I make a motion that we pass this on to the full body council with a positive recommendation.
All right, I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all right, moving back then. Thanks, Bonnie, for jogging me there. I was thinking about a couple of things. Okay, moving on to item number 6 on our agenda, and by Jove, Bonnie, it's just almost 2. It's supposed to be the shortest finance meeting we've had in weeks.
Oh, my goodness.
I think we have a couple of minutes to address the second quarter financial reports. I think we would be doing both Janice and ourselves a favor to try and wrap the meeting up before 2:30, but perhaps we could at least have a brief look over them before the third quarter financial reports make their appearance here sometime in the next week or two. Okay, Bonnie, did you have any thoughts on those?
Oh, my goodness, I didn't pull it. Not right at the moment, I don't. Let me quickly go over it.
Got it.
I didn't
Well,
expect to do this again.
I know. Well, we've been putting it off for so long.
I
that all our
know.
meetings kept running past that 2:30 mark that puts you in public works. So, so yeah, I mean, I reviewed them sort of briefly to look back up what I was curious about, but I don't feel like I've got as firm a grasp on them as I once had either. But Joe Pavlak, just looking real quick at the separate police overtime numbers. I don't know, Joe, if you've had any discussions with the police administration about and what their thought is. I know that you know we were under last year's overtime in the first quarter, which would have been expected because the pandemic had a pretty intense effect on our overtime there for a minute. But that we are creeping up pretty far over last year's overtime in the second quarter of this year, and that comp time is really through the roof, unless I'm missing something. $128,000 worth of, or excuse me, $126,000 worth of comp time versus 94 last year. What does that mean, Joe, in terms of budget implications?
I mean, I think you have to look at overtime and comp time collectively, because both of them are overtime categories. One's just that can be used for future
Right.
time off. So I guess looking at it in today's perspective, looking at the 6/30/21 numbers compared to 2020, we were about $5,000, $6,000 under on collectively on overtime that was paid out and comp time that was paid out. Looking at the same two categories this year, we're still slightly over, or I'm sorry, slightly under on the amounts that were paid out by, I want to say, $5,000 or $6,000, similar to what it was last. Sorry, I'm looking at the same reports. I have 930 in front of me too, and I was trying to give a comparison as to where we were at now.
Well, that would actually be helpful, because I guess what I'm curious about is we know that the pandemic had at least a momentary impact on our police overtime, because we were running pretty short shifts, trying to reduce exposure for a minute there. But I'm assuming that's lessening, and what I'm wondering is our overtime going up here as we see the effects of the pandemic beginning to wane a little bit? Or so if you have 930 in front of you, that might be helpful.
I do, and collectively, I'd say we're about $25,000 under the time that was paid out overtime and comp time. But I did run the numbers, and there are about 600 hours of accumulated comp time that is currently banked. I'm sorry, 650 more hours of banked time here at 930 compared to where it was last year at the same time. So people
Got it.
are
And what's the
waiting.
value on an hour?
I haven't run that report yet to see what the cash out value is. Do remember that by contract, they're allowed to carry over a certain number of hours per year. So I can also look at that to see what the maximum payout or the amount that we're required to pay out if it was at that time of year.
Right.
So I'll get that in line for and put that with next quarter's reports.
Okay.
I'll show that
All
the
right.
value on the books today or banked is at 930. And then if they were required to cash out today, what that would account to on a dollar figure.
Got it. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm curious about. Just trying to understand, because yeah, it seems as though creeping up amounts of comp time year over year. And I can understand why we would have that, because presumably there still aren't a lot of vacations happening necessarily, right? And I would think that that might be one of the things that comp time could potentially get used for. Or I don't know, or no, I guess it's a buyout. Geez, I'm sorry, I'm being a little foolish today. Sorry, Joe. Never mind. But anyway, just trying to understand our complete overtime calculation and to what extent we are over our traditional numbers.
Overtime's always been something that the committee's looked into. Right now, like I said, it appears based on paid out time. I don't know. I don't have a dollar figure on the value banked. So when we put all that together, we should have a better look at it. Do remember that last year there were different events, even with the pandemic, that created the
Right.
need for additional overtime. But then again, this year we brought back some events that haven't occurred that typically draw overtime. So it seems like we seem to be in a better position, somewhat.
Yeah. Good. Well, so we'll look for it. We'll look over that a little bit more on 9:30. I think we have encouraged every department in the city to try and limit overtime over the years, and yet it seems as though we more or less stay static, and perhaps that's to be expected, but just trying to keep an eye to make certain that we're not losing ground, I think is the idea.
The balance between the staff you have and the time you need to put out in the field.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, is what we
You have
struggle
to
with,
outweigh-
especially as we trim staff.
Yep. I mean, we have to look at one or the other. What staff do you maintain, or what overtime cost can you expect? Yep.
Right. And if you add more staff, can you actually expect to trim overtime, or is
Yep.
the overtime at the foot of something else? Right. Bonnie, do you have you retrieved your items?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
And I'm quickly going through things. Nothing really hits me as anything drastic. It really doesn't. Looking at what we have in different departments, I think it looks like, Joe, we're doing okay.
I mean, it's the middle of last year was a hard time to compare things to, with all that was going on with the pandemic. We had later collection time windows. So everything's not going to appear apples to apples. I think once we get into September, things should year to year more appropriately compare themselves.
Right. Yeah. It's been a strange couple of years to try and sort of stack next to each other and draw any conclusions. The one thing I'll note that, a handful of things I'll note that are a little troubling, Joe. I mean, our recreation programming is at 4% in this budget, I'm assuming because none of our expenditures had come in. And that jogs my memory, Janice, and this is my fault, but I believe that Kayla Drummond was supposed to be on the agenda today with reporting on spending on salaries and wages within the recreation department over the summer, and I don't think that ever made it on the agenda. So Kayla, of course, is not here. But if you could make sure to put that also on the agenda 2 weeks from now, I would appreciate it, because that's a conversation we need to have, looking at the recreation expenses and recreation earnings as we move into budget season.
I agree with that. That's the one thing that I looked at, but I was going to ask Joe if he got all the figures in from her. That was one of the things.
I would imagine that they're in now.
I know that there's still some. I think with our last check run last week, I saw some more expenses coming in. I can't speak as to everything that department has procured. So I'll have to leave it up to her to make sure she gets
Do some
everything.
reporting.
Yeah.
Got
so
it.
that-
Yeah.
Get it posted. So, and
I'll
then
shoot
they
her-
won't necessarily show up in our last checks were dated 10/1, so it falls right outside that 9/30 window. So there may be things missing on the next report.
Okay,
but,
so better to get a broader understanding from Kayla anyway, who should have everything.
Yeah, or I could,
Outlined by now.
if she wants, I can run in it. If she gets everything in for our next run next week, I can get that all put together and just run out that department through year to date as of October, whatever, to
Got
show
it.
all the expenses.
Okay. And then the other one that is a bit troubling perhaps is the Bureau of Law. Have we started to see invoices there, Joe?
We have, I started to put a report together. I have it pretty much put together. I have one firm through May. I believe one through May and one through June. The one that I have through June, they told me that they get their next quarter out here midway through October. And I can reach out to the other to see when we can get up to date, hopefully through the end of the quarter, and update that report
Mm-hmm.
and get that out for the first time to review.
Got it.
Joe,
Okay.
we'll also need to know, it's really all three. Because there've been chargebacks to Jill Nagy also.
I think I
Yeah.
did. I think I did throw those numbers, hours, and dollars on the report that I was putting together for the two city solicitors. I don't recall off the top of my head how far they went, how recent they are, or when the most recent one we received is. So I'll make sure I have any up-to-date information that I have included with it.
Okay. Great. That'd be good. Thanks, Joe. And then it looks as though our business privilege tax is coming in slightly better than anticipated, but that perhaps some of our other earnings are falling a little short of expectations. Looking specifically at the building permit numbers, et cetera, where I'm assuming we're not expecting to make those up.
The building
Correct.
permits, actually, yes. We're currently over 300. There were,
Oh, fantastic. Great.
yeah, there were a few big projects. I spoke to Joe Girardi about that prior to one of the previous discussions or previous meetings that we were going to talk about these. And I found the note that I took when I was with him. But like Cumming College, UPMC, and there was another development project that came in to lift us over our budget. And, then again, we get the regular $5,000 to $10,000 monthly regular permits.
Great.
So, yep, we're over the 300 figure right now.
All right. Excellent. Yeah, sorry. I guess it's sort of as though, Bonnie, we're watching last month's news and then asking Joe questions about it. Huh?
I'm predicting the future with these.
I know. It's kind of remarkable. I'm like, so I see we don't have enough money here. And you're like, well, actually.
I predict.
See, that's what I looked at and was surprised. I really was.
Yeah, and that's why I did mention that maybe we defer this and just roll it all into the third quarter discussion, but we can get somewhat of a glimpse as to what we can expect in a couple weeks with the next reports.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, well, I don't know that we need to belabor this any longer. Bonnie, do you have any other questions?
No, Liz, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, if I don't hear anything else, I think we can probably close down this line item and just look forward to the next quarter's reports. Anybody out there have any other questions about this? Okay, crickets, hearing nothing. Moving on to item number 7, any related items. Does anybody on this meeting have anything to introduce for the good of the order?